Hello, and welcome to podcast number 1, Secondary Sources. Now, before you begin any research project, make sure that you do your prep work. To do this, step 1, determine which law governs. In this case, it'll be Kansas law, but that won't always be the case. Step 2, generate a list of search terms. My favorite method for doing this is something called the TARP method. Now, TARP just stands for Things, Actions, Remedies, Places, and People. Make sure that you write down everything you can think of and make the list as big as possible. Now that you've got your list, let's start looking at some secondary sources. Why use secondary sources? Well, they're very easy. They give a good introduction to the material, and also they'll give you direction as far as where your legal research should head to. Examples of secondary sources: encyclopedias, law journals, restatements, treatises, and also the American Law Reports. First, let's look at encyclopedias. We have 2 national encyclopedias. These include American Jurisprudence and Corpus Juris Secundum. Here are some pictures. Corpus Juris Secundum, also called CJS, and American Jurisprudence. Step 1 in using an encyclopedia is to choose a general topic. Take this from the list that you generated earlier. Next, locate this within the general index. The index will be in alphabetical order, usually at the end, but sometimes at the beginning of the series. In our case, we're looking up foreclosures. You can see where it points us to the main volume titled Mortgages. Now that I've found the main volume, I'd like to find relevant sections. And the way I do this is by pulling the main volume down from the encyclopedia and then opening it up to the table of contents and seeing what fits. At that point, I pull out the main volume and I look for my section. Note at the bottom of each section you'll find cases. These are called annotations. These annotations will definitely help you in your research as you're trying to find primary material. And the final step in legal research is always update. To update encyclopedias, you want to look in the back at what's called pocket parts. Simply open up the pocket part and find the section that you were looking at in the main volume to see if anything new has occurred. Now let's see if we can find some legal periodicals, aka law reviews. The way that we look up articles is something called the Index of Legal Periodicals. There you'll find a subject index where you'll look it up by subject, or author index where you'll look it up by author. Now these are non-cumulative, which means you're going to have to go back year by year and see what has been presented. First step is to locate the volume that covers your specific time period. And then you'll want to look up in the index your topic. Again, here we're looking at foreclosures. Here I'm interested in the first one, 1,000 Trained to Handle Foreclosures. I'm going to go pull this article. To do so, I'll locate its position in the library, head there, and then find it within the stacks. Law review articles are always referenced by volume number and by page number. Now let's take a look at the restatements of the law. The restatements are divided into several different topics, among them property, torts, trusts, and others. There is a master index for the restatements. Unfortunately, we don't have that, but luckily each topic has its own index. Browsing their statements, I find property, mortgages. I look in the index and sure enough there is a section on foreclosure, so I go to that volume and read what is available. I of course update, but notice in the back there's no supplement. No big deal. At the end, I find an interim case citation to try and see if I can find any cases. I look and there are a few, but nothing really that strikes my fancy. Treatises are books that stick to one topic like torts or contracts. To locate a treatise, you'll need to use the online catalog. In my case, I use a search term foreclosure, and on the right-hand side I narrow it down to the law library. I look at the results, and I make note of the call number. And again, stack directory, elevator, call numbers, and this time I'm just going to browse and see if anything strikes my fancy. American Law Reports are ALRs. The ALRs are a lot like the encyclopedias, only the articles get way more in depth. ALR are volumed ALR through ALR 5th and ALR Fed. Your first step, of course, is going to be locating the general index, and then look up your topic, again in my case, foreclosure. I found an article on ALR 5th that looks like it's on topic, so I'm going to go to that volume, open it up, and take a look and see what it has to say. Just like the encyclopedias, there are annotations here that may be useful in the future. And as always, I look in the pocket part to see if there are any updates. It appears that there are quite a few. Articles are always replacing each other in ALR, so you always want to make sure and check your annotation history table to see if maybe your article has been replaced by another. In my case, there isn't, but you always want to make sure. Well, that's it for secondary sources. Just keep a few things in mind before diving in. Always do your prep work. Make lists using TARP. Choose a general topic. Step 2, locate your general index. Find the relevant section. And of course, always update, update, update. Keep track of everything you've done so you don't repeat your work. Thanks and happy researching!